Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio, and today we're going to change the oil in the bearing on a Rega Planar. I do get asked about this quite a lot actually, sometimes for the wrong reasons. I mean basically the oil in the main bearing, which I'm sure is underneath here, this is your main bearing, sometimes called subplatter. It's this part. There's a metal spindle underneath here and a little well of oil. A lot of people want to change the oil in here because if they're having problems with speed. Now I have covered this in other videos. The speed issues with Regas, there's a sort of very small number of things that can cause that. This isn't one of them. So if you've come here because you're having speed issues, give me a ring on the number that will be I'll put up at the end, because this does not cause speed issues. Some of the aftermarket ones can do. I've had people bought them metal hubs off eBay, and they've either having problems because they're completely worn out in 6 months, or they're having problems because it's expanding and contracting at a different rate than the sleeve of the bearing. And I've actually had them jam on the aftermarket ones. I tend not to say to people not to buy things like that, because a lot of these are sort of men in sheds. Really, they're not necessarily good quality parts. Some are, I shouldn't say that, some of them are, but I think with the Planar 3, this subplatter isn't built to price. It's not a cheap plastic part because they're trying to save money. It's part of the design, and this is why when you go to the Planar 6, this is a 3, when you go to the 6, they go to the metal hub then, because that's an ultra lightweight plinth, and you can then use a metal hub. This is actually quite a heavy plinth, so comparatively heavy plinth, and what you're trying to do is stop resonance from here getting to the platter and to the needle. So this part actually works as a bit of a damper. There's trade-offs. I mean, the pitch stability of this compared to some of the metal hubs you can buy won't be quite as good, because the actual accuracy of this isn't as good as some of the metal hubs. But it doesn't let as much noise through. So it's a trade-off, and really this works so well, I wouldn't sort of get too fussed about it. Anyway, speed-wise, I think the reason people think it's causing issues is it doesn't actually spin very freely. This is because it's a lightweight part and there's a very thick oil. In Rega use a gearbox oil. It's a Hypoid 80/90 gearbox oil. Nothing unusual. It's just a very thick oil that acts as a damper. Again, when you've got the heavy platter on, that will spin for ages and ages. It's just that when you've just got the lightweight subplatter on there, you just got to, it sort of feels as though it's not turning very freely, but actually it's doing its job. What you don't want to do is, and I've had a few people do this, and it's caused all sorts of issues, don't clean the oil out and put light machine oils in. It will damage the bearing, because what it tends to eke its way up. Usually when they've got light machine oils in, it sort of migrates to here. Sometimes it gets on the belt. It'll actually go between the metal spindle and this piece, the plastic part here. It'll get into this part, and it actually gets into the plastic resin that they use, and it starts to expand. So occasionally I'll have people who sort of, can you help me, I can't get my platter off, and they've changed the oil at some point, put light machine oils in. It's expanded, this part's expanded so much that it's actually jammed in the glass platter. So you don't want to do that. And also the other thing is that because it's sort of lost its it's sort of friction, not friction, but the damping effect, I suppose is a better word to use. Because it's lost its damping effect, pitch stability isn't as good either. You can actually sort of hear it. There's a definite wavering of the sound because it's fighting against the motor. So anyway, I'll now take that out. You'll see it won't go back down again because the actual air pressure, it's very slow. It's a good sign as to how good a bearing is actually. If you press it down, if it comes straight back up again, then it's air locking, which means there's very little wear. Now this deck is 40 years old, and there's very, very little wear on it really. I mean, if you actually check the bottom of the spindle, can you just tell there's a slightest, you probably can't see that on this camera, the slightest indentation in the middle there. I've had people with aftermarket metal hubs, when they're coming for a general service on the deck, and there's been a hole the same size as the ball bearing there, not just a tiny indentation. It's actually bored its way into the metal spindle. So you have to be a little bit wary of some of these things. They're not necessarily as good as they seem. But yeah, that's a 40-year-old bearing, barely worn. really, but we're going to change the oil just to show how it's done, because there are many sort of mistakes you can make. So I'm just going to go through all that, and there we go. Just reposition the camera. The first thing to do is to actually take the ball bearing out of the bottom of here. There's many ways to do it. If you've got one of those sort of screwdriver type attachments that's got a magnet on the end, you can do it with that. You have to be very careful not to scratch the housing there. What I tend to do is turn the deck upside down and just give it a bit of a tap underneath on the actual bottom of the brass housing. That works very well. So I'm just going to turn the deck upside down, get the bearing out, and then we can move ahead. Right, so now it's upside down, and I've not got the right tool. Let me just get that. So just holding my hand under the bearing underneath, and just give it a bit of a tap, like that. There you go, got it. So that's bearing's falling into my hand now. So just have to turn back over. So there we go. You can see it, got the ball bearing out. So give that a clean with a bit of isopropyl. Yeah, the tools you need are, got some cotton buds. I tend to don't use the plastic ones. Use the paper fibre ones, obviously for eco reasons. Switched over to those now, and we've just got a little bit of isopropyl in a tub there. Probably have to work quite quickly because it's probably going to work its way out of there. So yeah, so that's all you need really to do the job. Let me just set the camera up properly, and then we can clean out the bearing. Right, so we a bit of isopropyl on the end of your cotton bud. What I do is just turn it around. So try and get right into the corners of the bottom there. Take the ball bearing out because it's actually quite difficult to get into the, to actually clean the bottom of the bearing properly, because your the ball bearing's in the way all the time. Yeah, that's quite dirty. So. Turn it over using the other side. Keep doing this until it starts to show fairly clean. Just try and run all the way up and down the inner part of the bearing housing. Yes, that's not too bad actually. That's come quite clean quite quickly though. I think this has had. I think I have serviced this probably 10 years ago or so. So. I mean, it's a difficult one how often to change the oil in a Rega. It does sort of turn to treacle after a while, so it's probably, if you want to keep it sort of as it's supposed to be, then probably every 5 years or so. But I've seen people on forums quoting 12 months, 6 months. Oh, I change my oil, every full moon and all this sort of thing. And it's just not needed at all. It is purely to keep the bearing in good shape. It's nothing to do with the running, other than the fact that if the oil itself does completely break down, then the pitch stability might change slightly. But these aren't major things. It's not a night and day sort of differences. Yeah, I'd say that's done actually. That's gone better than normal. So it's, yeah, like I say, I don't think, because quite often there's like I said, like treacleized oil at the bottom of the bearing that takes quite a bit of getting out. So that seems to be okay there. So just leave it for a bit for the isopropyl to dry out. We also need to clean up the spindle on here. We're going to get a bit of isopropyl on the cotton bud there as well. I tend to firstly just get a bit of kitchen towel. So we dab that into so we get a bit of kitchen towel and just go around it first with that, and then go around it after that with a cotton bud just to make sure there's no fibres left from this. So work our way around on that. So spend a bit more time on that off camera actually, because it's take a while. If there's any migration of oil sort of up here, I'd get rid of that as well, because you sort of what I tend to get a lot of is you can always tell if somebody's got a cat, because it's usually around here you get sort of the build up of Mr. Tibbs or whatever it's called. So yeah, I mean, while you're in there with your cotton bud, and your isopropyl, it's not a bad idea to clean the pulley. Actually, I tend to run the motor and just put with a bit of isopropyl on cotton bud, run the motor and just clean the, as it's turning, clean the two parts of the pulley, and clean the outer edge of this as well. If you clean that with a bit of isopropyl, you can actually feel on this one. You can feel the bits of rubber from the belt on it, so it's worth cleaning that. That makes a bigger that probably makes a bigger difference than changing the oil cover to speed stability. So anyway, so that's that. So I think we're probably ready now for putting this back together again. I've cleaned the ball bearing, so we'll just drop that back in. There you go, and get the oil. Now basically you can buy this stuff from Halfords or from any motor factories really. Will sell Hypoid gearbox oil. It's the Hypoid 80/90 gearbox oil. I saw it on the website. It will seem expensive on the website because I think I was selling. It's on there for about roughly £8 for a bottle of oil, which is sort of one of these bottles. Basically, it's the cost of the bottle plus about £4 postage, because it won't go in a small envelope. It has to go in a small packet. Most of it's postage. I think the actual oil, the amount you're paying for oil is minimal, but it's just the way things are. If you only want a small amount of it, you don't want to buy a 2 litre bottle of it, then you can buy this on the website. So what you need to do, and I think I can't stress more, not to put too much in really. What you need on this is two drops into the bottom of the bearing. 1, 2, and then your third drop, touch it to the side like that and just let it. I've been slightly more inaccurate than intended there, but it's, yeah, what you want to do is just touch it on and just let that run down the side of the bearing housing. Just let that run for a bit. And what I'll do, it's actually basically, that's only managed to get 2.5 drops because I was a bit inaccurate, but actually that's probably fine. More than 3 drops, and when you put the oil back together again, it'll actually start eking its way out here, and that's when you start getting oil getting underneath of the subplatter, and then the centrifugal force and the sort of osmosis sort of processes going on. It actually works its way out to the edge of the subplatter, and then you can get it ends up getting onto the belt, which is probably the worst case scenario really. Okay, making sure your hands are clean, because you're handling oil and everything. Always wash your hands between. I'm not doing, but generally I would always do that. You make sure you clean your hands before. Any traces of oil on your fingers, you don't want them to be getting them onto these parts. I'll put that in. Just give it a gentle spin. It's no way is that going down at the moment. We just keep giving it a bit of a spin, pressing it down, a bit of a spin. Now what I tend to do, what you're trying to do is spread the oil that you've run down the side around the spindle. I mean, you can actually just put it straight onto the spindle, but it's difficult to sort of regulate that. You can either end up putting too much on, or when you actually put the spindle in, half of it ends up on the top of the bearing housing and doesn't go in. So it's slowly going down. What I'm going to do is move. The easier way to do this is to just put the platter back on. It might look a bit brutal, but what I tend to do is spin it up about 100 RPM. It kind of shows how good the Rega bearing is actually, because it really will run for a long time. And what you're waiting for is the air pressure to equal, the air to force its way out, and for the bearing to drop. Could be here a while with this. Like I say, 40-year-old bearing, and there's not really any sort of major signs of wear on it really. They are very long lived. I mean, if you do have any issues, that whole part, the whole hub and the bearing part at the bottom is, again, sell those on the site. £21 I think they are at the moment. This is as of 2021. Not an expensive part, but really they've been making these things for pretty much the same part for 48 years. Yeah, 48 years they've been using that sort of. They've changed it. It's changed slightly over recent years, the top of it's got like a little castellated effect, so it's slightly more isolated now than it used to be. But yeah, I might do this off camera now, because this could take anything up to 20 minutes to drop, and I don't think you want to stand there, sit there, whatever, watching that. Let's just have a look at it. Yeah, so you can see it's coming up, still not dropped. So we'll leave that to drop and come back to it shortly. Right, all done. It's all settled down now, and it seems ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful. If you've got any questions, give us a call, or you can send a message via email. I'll put them both along the bottom of here, so you can contact us. Probably best not leaving messages in the comments, because we tend not to see them for weeks afterwards. So if you want to have a conversation with us or whatever, it's probably better by phone, really. Just give us a call. Don't forget, we don't just do Rega. We do most of the British decks, actually. Certainly Lynn System deck, Pink Triangle, Nottingham, Michelle, and European decks like the Thorns or whatever. Tend not to get too involved with automatics and that sort of thing, but so some of the techniques, some of the duels, we tend not to do now. They're just becoming too expensive to repair, really. They take too much time to sort out, really. So, but anyway, and also don't forget, our main thing is we are a sort of a hi-fi shop. We sell new equipment, we sell new Regas, new Nottingham analogues, projects, that sort of thing. So you can give us a call for that if you want a new cartridge, or we can recommend which cartridge. In fact, we're thinking of doing a video specific to Rega again, which I know is becoming a bit repetitive, but we get a lot of decks coming in, and they've got the same cartridge that when they were bought with. So we might have a 40-year-old, 30-year-old cartridge on them. We go back far enough to know which cartridges are modern equivalents of, or have similar sound signatures, or whatever you need, really. So yeah, we're thinking of doing a video on that one, really, because there are hundreds of cartridges that were fitted to Regas in the early days, because they didn't used to come with them. So I'm hoping to sort of clarify that a little bit and make it easier for people to get resurrect the deck and make it sound like it did when they got it. So but anyway, yeah, I'm waffling on as well, as again, as people keep telling me. So anyway, yeah, like I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.